Today's conversation is on doing nothing to relax into the flow. Doing nothing to relax into the flow of life. I do nothing to relax into the flow of life. Personally, I do nothing to relax into the flow of life. What do I mean by this? Well, let's take meditation, for example. While meditating, and I do a 20-minute Vipassana meditation. I'll link in the description to the Vipassana meditation, a guided meditation. I don't do the guided meditation, yet I do a Vipassana meditation. Now, while I do a meditation, my body is still, so I physically appear, we could say, to do nothing. Emotions are allowed to be released without labeling them, letting them be. Doing nothing with the emotions, let's say, which is energy in motion. The same with thoughts. Thoughts appear in mind and disappear. They appear to disappear in mind. I do nothing with the thoughts. So I physically do nothing with the body. I do nothing with the emotions. I do nothing with the thoughts. And I meditate for, let's say, 20 minutes. Now, I experience bliss in meditation. I experience being one with the flow of life during meditation. So I do nothing physically, emotionally, mentally, and relax into the flow of life. I experience bliss, my true nature. Sat Chit Ananda, truth consciousness bliss, existence consciousness bliss. And this is an integrated experience during meditation. Physically, emotionally, mentally, to the spiritual truth that I am bliss. How so? Well, there is a neurotransmitter that is released by doing nothing in meditation. It's called anandamide. Anandamide is a neurotransmitter that was inspired by the Sanskrit word for bliss, which is ananda. Again, existence, consciousness, bliss. You are that. Your true existence, we could say, is bliss. So this is wonderful. During meditation, the bliss molecule is released and the individual in the body experiences bliss. Emotions are regulated. There are many benefits. You can read up on it if you would like. Many benefits to anandamide, including the reconciliation of divergent thinking and convergent thinking. Divergent thinking is, we could say, seeing things from many different perspectives, infinite perspectives. Convergent thinking is, let's say, choosing to work with well-established solutions. Is one way better than another? Personally, I don't think so. I don't consider one way better than another. Divergent thinking and convergent thinking reconciles with anandamide. As I also say, divergent thinking and convergent thinking reconciles while you're in flow. So I do nothing to relax into the flow. Now, I also do nothing to relax into the flow in harmony with day-to-day life experiences. Even in particular situations, let's say, where the person in mind may label those situations as challenging. You can experience flow in situations where the person in mind can label those situations as challenging. This was very well articulated in the book Flow by Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. In there, it also talks about how you can relax into the flow in the sweet spot where challenge meets skill. Challenge meets skill. Now, practically speaking, any initiative, creative expression, conversation, making videos, you can relax into the flow, and also, while you are in flow, anandamide is released. And again, you get all the benefits. Emotional regulation, transformation, reconciliation of divergent and convergent thinking, and thus what we refer to as old man beliefs, old man thinking of the former self in the Bible is dissolved while you're in flow. So just as you can relax into the flow by doing nothing, absolutely nothing in meditation, you can relax into the flow by doing absolutely nothing in the sweet spot where challenge meets skill. How so? Well, consider this. Let's say a person would like to start a conversation with someone. I get this question a lot. A person's at a party, they're at an event, they're out with their friends. They see someone that they're interested in starting a conversation with. And we could say it appears very challenging to them in mind. Is it actually challenging? Or is it a suggestion in mind arising from a particular belief, which we can say is a limited belief? A suggestion in mind arising from a particular belief, which is not you really thinking. Those beliefs belong to the former self, and you are not the former self. You are the real self, who, if you really think, you think from the premise of fulfillment, not lack of fulfillment. That's not you really thinking. In that moment, they have an opportunity to put off the former conversation, not identify with it, because if they identify with that former conversation, it could appear as challenging or very challenging, and no shame, no condemnation. The opportunity is presented. They genuinely desire to start the conversation with this individual. It's a genuine desire of the heart. And they're also presented with an opportunity for mind purification. And it is presented in the sweet spot where challenge meets skill. And by skill, consider this. You are infinitely intelligent as you are. As I always say, you are perfect, love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, whole, complete, and infinitely intelligent. You were created in the perfect image of the Creator. So how can you not be perfect, love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, and infinitely intelligent? How could you not be? And although we might not, let's say, via reason, be able to reasonably explain how so we are infinitely intelligent, that's okay. That skill is actualized by relaxing into the flow. you can actualize that skill, the higher degree of ability that you have inherent within you, or we could say dormant within you. You can actualize that ability by relaxing into the flow. And you are physically supported, we could say, via Ananda mind, the bliss molecule. So you can experience bliss by not identifying with the illusory thinking and allowing yourself to start the conversation with that person. And while in conversation with that individual, you can experience more bliss by not identifying with the thoughts that may appear in mind that spawn from the old man beliefs, the former self beliefs, which is not you really thinking. That's old man thinking. And you are not the old man. You are not the former self. You are the real self. The real self. Now you get to manifest that divine presence into form experientially as wonderful relationships, wonderful conversation, thus putting off the former conversations that belong to the old man, which is not you, thus you really think for yourself. If you were to think in relationship harmoniously with this person prior, during, and after interaction, it would be thinking from the premise of fulfillment, as you are fulfilled. As mentioned, you exist now as love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, for no reason at all. Beyond reason, we could say. So we don't identify with the limited reason, we could say, of those particular beliefs that appear as thoughts in mind. And in that moment, we relax into the flow and we start the conversation. And we actually experience bliss. I trust you've noticed this. This is not new to you. You've experienced this before. This is why I say relationships, conversations, meeting new people can be a form of spiritual catalyst, can be a spiritual catalyst. You get to practically actualize yourself. This is an integrated experience. Beyond theory. Actualize yourself beyond theory. The self beyond theory. Into form, practically, physically, emotionally, mentally, integrated with the spiritual truth that I am fulfilled. Thus, you can experience flow in that moment by practically doing nothing to relax into the flow as you engage in conversation with them. And I trust you notice this. The conversation flows. What you say, what you don't say, what you do, what you don't do, what they say, what they don't say, what they do, what they don't do, flows naturally and harmoniously, authentically. And during the conversation, there may be opportunities. Thoughts may appear in mind as well to put off the former conversation, which simply means don't identify with the old man thinking. Don't identify with the former self thinking, because that's not really you thinking. That's not you really thinking. You really thinking is thinking from the premise of fulfillment. There's no need to think otherwise. So, as you are in flow in the interaction, and anandamide is released as well to support, you notice there's no overthinking in mind. There is what appears as what we call yes and, or harmonious relationship conversation. I noticed this. We talked about this at the event that Danielle Lynn and I did recently in New York. It was a sold-out event. We had a wonderful turnout. And what wonderful experiences we had. So we talked about this and we went through some exercises. I learned this back in the days from improv. I took improv classes back in the days. It was a lot of fun. And one of my key takeaways was yes and. So what she taught us was, as we're going around the room, engaging in a flow-based conversation out loud with everyone, and we could say whatever we'd like. The goal is to continue the story as it goes around the room. So one person may say, today's a wonderful, beautiful, sunny day outside. And then the next person is to continue the conversation. So what she taught us was, if you don't know what to say to add to the conversation, and you could say whatever you'd like, you can make it comedic, whatever you'd like, just say yes and continue the conversation. So if someone said, it's a beautiful sunny day outside, you could say, yes, and I plan on going to the beach later on. And the next person might say, yes, and I will be bringing my surfboard. And the other person can even take it another step further outside of that context, let's say, and say, yes, and the sun is made out of ice cream or something like that. And thus it's a melting sun. And while that might not make any logical sense, the practice was relaxing the overthinking in mind and the needing to be perfect, etc. And what would happen as we would go around the room is all of us would relax into the flow by doing nothing. Now, yes and is actually doing nothing. It is actually embracing what can appear as challenge and matching it with skill and allowing that inherent skill to emerge. How so? By doing nothing in this regard, it's not trying to come up with something to sound cool, to impress people, to, let's say, make it clever or something like that. It's actually doing nothing. And what would happen is the individual would relax into the flow. Now, why I bring that up is because if we acknowledge that reality is in our favor, as you exist now as love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, I exist as love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, we all spring from the sure foundation of love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, as wholeness, completeness, then reality is in our favor, we could say. Everyone appears to be in our favor. If it does not appear that way, we can take the opportunity to relax into the flow by doing nothing. I do nothing to relax into the flow. You may find it helpful to say yes and. And by the way, yes and can also be if the other person says no but. So let's say you're saying yes and, you're going around the room, and then one person says no but, which could seem in appearance, again, to the person in mind, as a flow restrictor. Is it really a flow restrictor? Only if the person, let's say, identifies with particular thoughts that suggest, let's say, lack of love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, or illusions of separation from fulfillment in relation to that appearance of what the person seemed to suggest, which is no but. In that point is another opportunity to do nothing, to relax into the flow. I trust you know what I'm talking about here. Consider, how do you relate to this world? Is it from the premise of your true nature, which is absolute fulfillment? That's what I mean by doing absolutely nothing, to relax into the flow. So just as we can relax into the flow during a meditation where we're sitting down in the comfort of our own home with, we could say, no distraction or little distraction, we can also do this in day-to-day life. This is what I refer to as living meditation or living the meditation practice. Is one better than another? I removed that bias, actually. I don't consider one way better than another. I meditate for 20 minutes a day, sometimes more, and I live the meditation practice in each moment by relaxing into the flow. And if it's helpful, I say yes and. We could say acceptance of what is. Acceptance of what is. Beyond needing to conflict and argue and figure it out, do nothing. Eases the mind, yes and say whatever comes up. Now, through that practice of doing that, what I noticed was it became easier to acknowledge that there really is a sweet spot where challenge meets skill, and you have the inherent skill. This is another important point. The individual may think that they need to acquire all these public speaking skills. They may watch a bunch of videos and read a bunch of books, and those books may seem to suggest do this and don't do that, and that might result in a lot of confusion in mind, not because of the information, but rather the individual is, let's say, trying to do too many things when the ideal thing to do, enjoy those books, enjoy those videos. But I recommend not saying you have to do it, need to do it, should do it in order to experience wonderful relationships. Certainly, I've read a lot of books, watched a lot of videos. Yet, I don't say I have to do these things. I do whatever feels authentic to me, and that naturally arises. So it may be some of those things. It may not be, or it could be a variation, or it could be my own way of doing it. Allow that space, the infinite intelligence of that space, where that sweet spot is, where challenge meets skill. I do nothing in that moment. I relax by doing nothing in that moment during, let's say, what could appear as seeming challenge. No shame and condemnation. I relax into the flow in that moment by practically speaking, doing nothing. Not identifying with illusory thinking, suggesting separation from being fulfilled. In harmonious relationship with the person, myself, together. Put off those former conversations. Now, not only do you end up engaging in a wonderful conversation with the other person, one could say you manifest a higher degree of your inherent confidence. Personal magnetism, we could say, increases. The inherent personal magnetism, that divine presence, is manifested into form more so. I trust you notice this. If you've been applying this, I trust you've been noticing this. You have been taking the opportunities to relax into the flow in the sweet spot where challenge meets skill. And by the way, sitting down and doing a meditation practice may also present opportunities to relax into the flow where challenge meets skill. So you can relax into the flow at any moment. Now, another benefit of doing this, I found, is over the years, and I've made flow a priority since 2017, applying exactly what we're talking about right here, since 2017. Prior to that, sometimes I was aware of this, sometimes I was not. Yet I chose. In 2017, when I was in Playa del Carmen, Mexico, and I took an inventory of my life, and I asked myself the question, it was a genuine question, when was I the most blissful, happiness-based, love-based, peace-based, fulfillment-based? I was experiencing flow-based relationships, harmonious relationship with environment. Business was also growing, let's say, effortlessly. It was while I was in flow. And so I said, what if I made that a priority? And I made it a priority. And this, what I talk about here, right now, I practice. As you practice this, which is a simple practice, what is more simple than doing nothing to manifest your ideal life? Doing nothing to relax into the flow of life. A child does it. You can do it. Everyone that I've worked with who has practiced this, applied it, found that the areas, let's say, that they once thought of as challenging no longer appeared as challenging. Again, beyond theory. You exist as perfect love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, infinite intelligence. And you can actualize that into form, practically speaking, physically, emotionally, mentally integrated to the spiritual truth, inner and outer as one. The divine presence manifested into form as wonderful life experiences, wonderful relationships, wonderful business. This is what I mean by make flow a priority. So as I have been applying this over the years, which is, again, doing nothing to relax into the flow, doing nothing to relax into the flow during meditation, day-to-day life, what happens? It manifests as wonderful relationships, wonderful lifestyle, wonderful business, authentic being, authentic relationships. So, as mentioned earlier, you see someone that you're interested in starting a conversation with, you walk over, start the conversation with them. You engage in a conversation with them. And because there's no shame and condemnation and no illusory beliefs identified with, if it goes this way, great. If it goes that way, great. If they give you the phone number, great. If they don't give you the phone number, great. It doesn't change the fact that you are fulfilled now. You are fulfilled now for no reason. I suggest not forming confirmation bias to say because of this reason or that reason. I recommend not doing that. So you can be as you are, as unconditional love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, manifesting more so, practically speaking, in form, with increasing frequency on a continuous basis as far as the senses perceive, by simply doing nothing to relax into the flow, even in moments during seeming challenge. What I have found is that those moments that were very challenging became easy. They were even moments that I stepped into where I thought I would never step into that. Not only did I saw it at one point as challenging, I thought of it as extremely chaotic. What's wrong with chaos? It's a place to see the order. There is always order in chaos. You see it when you relax into the flow. You witness it as you relax into the flow. So even in those moments where I thought, let's say, it was petrifying to do those things, whatever it may be, I noticed myself doing them. And they weren't, over the course, experienced as petrifying, maybe in the earlier stages. I didn't have to rush it. I took the opportunities wherever they presented themselves. If I genuinely desired to do something, I could see this as an opportunity to relax into the flow by doing nothing. I step into the challenge and witness the sweet spot by doing nothing, where challenge meets skill, and skill is manifested to higher degrees. I trust you notice this. So these opportunity points, we could say, where they appeared as challenging or outside of the comfort zone, actually were experienced quite comforting, we could say, when we realize that they are opportunities to relax into the flow. And as we do this again and again and again, which is living the meditation practice, mind is purified. You get to purify the subconscious mind from these illusory beliefs that don't belong to you. They belong to the old man. You're not the old man. The former self, that's not you. You are the real self. You really think for yourself. You really live the way you genuinely desire to live. As we relax into the flow of life in the sweet spot, where Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi articulated as where challenge meets skill, mind is purified from those illusory thoughts, illusory beliefs, and we could say you become like a little child again, and you do what your heart desires. If you don't feel like doing it, you don't do it. You don't force yourself to do something that you genuinely don't desire to do because you believe that that will bring you love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, because of some standard, which is, again, just a belief. That belief is dissolved. There's no shame and condemnation. and childlike. You do what you genuinely desire to do. Practically speaking, your attention appears to go in directions where delight is. You could say you practically follow your bliss. Because bliss you are, Satchit Ananda, existence, consciousness, bliss. The bliss molecule is released. You naturally, we could say, appear to follow your bliss because you are actualizing yourself as bliss, and it appears as blissful life experiences. And you can even find the bliss in the sweet spot where challenge meets skill. That is how we practically relax into the flow. We practically relax into the flow by doing nothing. So I trust you found this video to be helpful. Let's conclude this with an auto-suggestion to further encourage. You could say, I practically relax into the flow by doing nothing to transmute what could appear as obstacle into opportunity, what could appear as challenge into bliss. Bliss I am and bliss I actualize into form in a harmonious, integrated way, physically, emotionally, mentally, to the spiritual truth that I am bliss, as I acknowledge more so each moment with increasing frequency on a continuous basis, that people, environment, circumstance, and information appear blissfully to me as symbols of bliss.